Hello and welcome friends to this session in Unit 3. In the last few sessions we have discussed about advertising and the advertising process, the 5 step it comprises of. We talked about the first 2 steps in detail and we were in the middle of discussion on the third step, which is choosing the advertising message. We had talked about message generation, message evaluation selection and message execution. And you would remember that in the last session that we talked about the different kinds of appeals that can be there, which can be made use of by a marketer. Now there was one question from one of the students and I would like to respond to that question here. The question was, which kind of products would suit rational appeal and which kind of products would suit emotional appeals? So please understand, I hope you remember our discussion on high involvement products, high risk products, high risk purchases. So naturally high involvement products, for example car, for example the college from where you will do your MBA, or for example the house that you want to buy. So these are all high involvement decisions. In all such cases you don't go by emotions, you go by hard fact based thinking, logical thinking. So these are the decisions which are taken rationally, and in such cases high involvement products, rational appeals are going to work better. On the other hand, impulse purchases, for example when you are trying to buy a Cadbury's chocolate, for example, or you are trying to buy, let's say, alcoholic beverage or a non-alcoholic beverage, a carbonated beverage or a biscuit. So these are impulse purchases. In such cases you generally do not give it a good long thought before buying. You simply go and buy on impulse. So in such cases emotional appeal is going to work better. So I hope that answers your question. As far as the high involvement products are concerned, generally rational appeals are used, and that is why whenever you see a mobile ad, handset ad, or you see a computer, laptop ad, you generally see that that particular ad is talking about the various attributes of the product. So this is an example of rational appeal, right? On the other hand, low involvement products, impulse purchases, go for the emotional appeal. So now that we have understood one more aspect of the appeals and where to use which kind of appeal, let us now move over to the second aspect, which is basically execution style. So how do you actually execute the advertising message? What do you actually show? Yes, you have taken care of the appeal. So you decided, for example, that let's say your appeal would be, let's say, joy. But how then you depict that joy? Is it that you are using a cartoon character to depict that joy? Is it that you are making use of some situation that most of us have faced in life to depict joy? Or are you going to talk about joy making use of some personality, some well-known personality, so some well-known celebrity? So there can be different way in which you can execute your advertising message, and that is what we are going to talk about here. So there are different types of execution styles. We'll be talking about a few of them today. For example, lifestyle. Now you can understand, and I have given you an example of the Raymond's ad, which you might have seen on national television as well. So here it basically, the message, if you look at, is basically making use of emotional appeal, not making use of any rational appeal. But the execution style is lifestyle, wherein we are depicting the lifestyle of a high-flying couple and depicting them wearing Raymonds. So that is an example of an execution style. Then we can have fantasy. Fantasy is something that is simply not possible in the real world. I hope you remember this famous ad in which Mahendra Singh Dhoni plays the main role. And herein basically this is basically a chocolate brand ad, and here in this particular scene is depicted from the changing room of Chennai Super Kings team, and this character in the middle, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, is shown as a middle-aged warrior. Why? Because he's hungry and that is why he's feeling like this and he's behaving as though he's a middle-aged warrior. But when he has that particular brand of chocolate, then what happens is, then he gets back to his normal way of thinking. So this is an example of fantasy, something that is actually not possible in real world. That is what fantasy is all about. So for example, the Vodafone Zuzu ads, they can be taken as an example of fantasy, right? Again, emotions have been made use of, emotional appeal has been made use of, here humor has been made use of. To an extent, we can also say that rational appeal is there, because we are saying that if you are feeling hungry, you can have this particular brand of chocolate. So emotional appeal is there, that is the predominant appeal in the ad, but rational appeal element is also there, and the execution style is fantasy. Then the execution style can be moved. For example, this particular ad which you see here, again Airtel ad, we have discussed in the last lecture also. Now here we are basically talking about the mood which people are in when they are with their friends. So that is why this execution style is called mood. And then we have got image and musical. Now what do we mean by a musical? Musical is basically to convey a particular advertising message, you are making use of music. So that is what we mean by musical. This is the link of one very well-known use of musical execution style in a very well-known advertising campaign. So you can follow this link and have a look. In the meanwhile, what I'll do is I'll play this particular musical for you and you will be able to recognize the brand. So just give me a moment. Right. So are you able to recognize the product or service that this particular musical execution style is trying to sell? I hope you recognize that this is basically trying to sell an event. And which event are we talking about? Yes, the IPL. So we are talking about the Indian Premier League, one of the very significant cricket tournaments that we have, domestic cricket tournaments that we have here in India. And this was basically a musical execution style used by IPL to sell their event, right? So this is an example of a musical execution style. Let us talk about some other execution styles. Now we have here personality symbol. Have a look at this particular ad here, personality symbol. So you can make use of some very well-known personality, very well-known individual, some celebrity. For example, Zakir Hussain has been made use of by the Taj Mahal tea, which basically earlier was a Tata product and now it basically is probably in the HUL fold. So Taj Mahal tea, and they were making use of Zakir Hussain. So they made use of Zakir Hussain in almost all their ad campaigns, and it is a very well-known ad campaign. In fact, now Zakir Hussain's name is synonymous with Taj Mahal tea, and Taj Mahal tea is synonymous with Zakir Hussain. So that is what they are trying to sell here. So this is an example of how you can make use of personality symbols, right? Please understand that here in this kind of ad, Zakir Hussain is playing himself. He is not playing somebody else role. He is not playing any character. He is playing himself. Now that is an example of personality himself. On the other hand, I hope you have seen Amitabh Bachchan ad or Alia Bhatt ad. Let's talk about the Amitabh Bachchan ad of the Thanda Thanda Cool Cool oil, hair oil. Now there he does not play Amitabh Bachchan. He is playing a particular character. So that is not an example of personality symbol. Personality symbol is when the personality that you are using is playing himself. He is not playing some other character. So that is what an example. What is an example of personality symbol execution style. Now let us talk about the technical expertise execution style. Here what we do is we get some technical expert to talk about our product or service. For example, now this is the ad which showcases how we can use technical expertise as an execution style. Narayan Karthikeyan has been depicted here in this particular print ad. Please understand, Narayan Karthikeyan is the first Formula 1 car racer from India. So naturally, he is known for speed racing and he should be considered as an expert as far as automobiles are concerned. And that is why he is shown recommending to the audience to buy Speed, which is basically a Bharat Petroleum product, as a lubricant. So Bharat Petroleum have made use of Narayan Karthikeyan because Narayan Karthikeyan is considered to have an expertise over things related to automobiles, and that is why he is recommending the target audience to buy this particular brand of lubricants for your car engines, right? So this is an example of technical expertise. Let's talk about scientific evidence. In some places what you can do is to make your message more credible, to make people trust your advertising message, and this is a very important aspect. We have talked about how believability is a very important aspect as far as advertising messages are concerned. So you give scientific evidences also. You might have seen this Lifebuoy ad wherein they talked about recognition by IMA, Indian Medical Association. So just like that, we have this Airtel ad which has started featuring only in the last couple of months, wherein this character talks about the speed test which was conducted basically by Ookla. Ookla is known as an agency which basically speed tests different mobile networks, and that particular agency has found Airtel to be having the fastest network here in India, and they have made use of this particular fact. So they are giving some scientific evidence. So the target audience is being given some evidence that yes, their mobile service is the fastest, and that is why they should go and buy this particular mobile service. And now again we can make use of testimonials. Now what do we mean by testimonials? Testimonials are basically those advertising messages which feature a satisfied customer talking about his product experience. So this is an example of a testimonial. So what we do in testimonials, basically we get some satisfied customers of ours to talk about our product, our service, and how they were benefited from the use of those products and services. So this is an example of testimonial. I hope you have seen these infomercials which appear on TV. In these infomercials, many a times you see, for example, characters talking about their product experience and talking about how they have benefited from the use of a particular brand of product or service. So that is an example of a testimonial, right? So for example, here in our department also we can have testimonials from our ex-students who have passed out from this particular college, who have cleared this particular course and they have gone on to do well in their lives. So we can get testimonials from them wherein they will talk about how they benefited from their tenure here in the Department of Business Administration while they were doing their BBA. So that would be an example of testimonial. And the last one is slice of life. Slice of life is exact opposite of fantasy. Herein we'll be talking about basically what happens in the normal life. So we'll be not making use of those aspects which generally we don't get exposed to in normal life. We'll be talking about those things which keep on happening with us in normal life. For example, here this basically is a Dabur ad wherein a mother is basically depicted massaging the head of her daughter. So this is an example of slice of life. We are picking up our advertising message from what happens in the normal life. So that is what slice of life is all about. For example, there are so many ad campaigns which depict what actually happens with you in real life. So that would be an example of slice of life as an execution style. So friends, till now we have discussed 10 odd execution styles. So you can make use of any of them in your advertising message. Now the idea is that you should understand not only the execution style, but you should also know how to use and where to use these different execution styles, and which kind of appeal will suit which kind of execution style, or which kind of target audience would prefer which kind of execution style. The task for you would now be to keep on watching different ads and to try and identify which particular appeal and which particular execution style is being used in a particular ad. So thank you very much for your time.